Hello everyone, another video here on the channel. For those who aren't subscribed yet, please subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed the content, share it, and feel free to use the comment section. Today, we're going to talk about a story that a close friend of mine told me, and while the story itself is pretty shocking, it's not exactly unheard of. Chances are, many of you have already come across similar stories, all across Brazil. However, the main point of this video is going to be some more evolutionary explanations, and about the very biology of the female imperative, which still has very little material available online, even though there are already some significant studies on the topic. As I go along, I'll share an important source that has Portuguese subtitles so everyone can understand. I'll pin a comment later, but first I'm going to tell the story, okay? This friend of mine told me this story, and he told it to me in a way he was pretty disgusted when he came to tell me. And this happened at a beach. At a beach in, I'm not going to say which beach it was, just that it was one of the beaches here in Brazil. And the person who told him this story, according to him, was his cousin's boyfriend, who's really good friends with a lifeguard at that beach. And the lifeguard is a real stud, 24 years old, ripped, all that. He's the kind of guy women look at and feel that genuine, instant attraction. Even if he's the type of guy women don't care about his job, how much he makes, or his social status. None of that matters, at least for short or medium term relationships. He's the kind of guy women want, because he's really a stud. He's a very good looking guy. And it's really common for lifeguards to catch women's attention and hook up with tourists, right? That's not news to anyone, but what I'm about to say, the story here isn't exactly new either, but the explanation behind it, which I'll get to, is going to be kinda black pill. So get ready for that. The guy just showed up out of nowhere at his little stand over at the where they stay, up in those tall towers, right? So they can have a wide, high up view of what's going on in case someone drowns. Then this there was a family nearby, a woman, a husband, and two kids. At one point, the husband walked away to buy something, maybe coconut water or something like that. The woman went over and started chatting with the lifeguard while the kids were playing in the sand. She left a little note with her phone number, wrote it on a napkin or a scrap of paper, something like that, her number for the guy. They started texting each other afterward until she saw an opportunity where she'd be alone when her husband was going to take the kids to get something or whatever. She quickly took advantage of the moment, went over there, and right there in the lifeguard's workspace, those wooden huts on the sand, she went over there and had a quick fling with the lifeguard right then and there. So, anyway, here's yet another story of female infidelity, driven by emotion and physical attraction. Nothing new for women, right? But what's the reason for making this video and sharing it with you all? If it were just that, I wouldn't even bother telling a story like this, because stories like these, even though they still make your stomach turn a bit, are everywhere. Everyone knows similar stories, right? About women who, when their husbands go to work, take a trip, or go fishing, end up cheating. Maybe some hysterical person will show up here who doesn't know what this channel is about. Oh, but men cheat on women too. They go to brothels, have mistresses, and so on and so on. Okay, but no one here is denying that there are men who cheat too. I've already made a video about infidelity and said that there isn't enough reliable data to say for sure. Who cheats more, men or women? But female infidelity has stopped being a myth, something that would occasionally shock society, and has become something ordinary and normal. Just like male infidelity is very obvious, there isn't much need for scientific analysis of male cheating because monogamy is already a sacrifice for men. Men have testosterone levels 10 to 15 times higher than women, so if a guy has the opportunity and doesn't have many moral restraints or anything like that, he'll take advantage of the opportunities that he considers useful or enjoyable, as long as he doesn't get caught or anything and can still keep his marriage. He's in a monogamous relationship, but he'll cheat. So there's not much mystery behind male infidelity. It's pretty obvious. So if women want to say, oh, you men are so obvious, you guys are something else, okay, nobody's going to argue about that here. So just making that clear, because this is a serious channel about stimuli and rewards in the environment. Here we work with this Pavlovian approach, analyzing major dysfunctional hypocrisies in society and bringing some explanations about. what can be observed in the dynamics between men and women. So now, this is where the real black pill starts, okay? So, here's the story. A woman who cheated on her husband with a guy, a handsome 24-year-old lifeguard, on a beach in Brazil at his workplace. But now comes a topic that Alexander Grace, who's one of the biggest content creators in the world, in our field I'll leave the link to his channel as well. But his channel is for, you need to know, you need to understand English, at least written English, because there are subtitles, but they're only in English. But to everyone's delight, the Teoria da Aparência channel brought a piece that's vital. In this specific video, which talks about what Alexander Grace, who translated and added Portuguese subtitles, a lot of work, very well done, on the Teoria da Aparência channel, translated what's called concealed ovulation. Our friend Corujao, he ended up dropping out again, unfortunately. He'll take a break and eventually come back, but anyway, he also brought this kind of content. Now, he's going to be offline for a while, but eventually he'll come back. But unfortunately, right? A lot of people have been asking about it. I just had to make this side note in the middle of the video. So I'm going to leave the link to Alexander Grace's scientific explanation. It's a video of about 13 or 14 minutes where he explains all of this, but I'm already going to tell you guys about it here. Because it's important for more people to talk about this, okay? Even though it's a concept that's easy to understand, it's something that, well, you guys are going to be really shocked when you get it here. In the explanation too, for sure, but it might be a bit discouraging, that nihilism, that feeling that, well, some types of content we end up bringing here, but it's necessary to bring the black pill to you guys on the channel. So let's get to it. What is this so-called hidden ovulation? If you look at various species in nature, especially mammals, but this also happens with birds. Anyway, in many different species, then the female, when she wants to get pregnant, she needs to mate. She'll give off some signals, whether it's pheromones or changes in her body. Like with monkeys, for example, it gets redder. That area, you know I'm talking about, some will give off a really strong smell. Anyway, there are signals there for mating so that fertility can happen in the animal world. And outside of those periods, the males don't really care much about mating itself. They're not just hanging around, obsessed with it or anything like that. So they go hunting and just hang out, wandering through the forest or wherever their environment happens to be, and so on. But there are already several studies showing that monogamy in nature is very uncommon, even among those really cute species that a lot of people used to think were monogamous, like penguins and some birds, like the ovenbird, for example, that stays with its mate for life. They found out through DNA testing that up to 40% of the males raising the offspring aren't actually the biological fathers. So usually, when the male goes out to find food for the female will stay with the cutest, most attractive male in the group, in the case of birds anyway. And the DNA tests prove it, right? So the guy ends up raising a kid that's not his. That's actually pretty common here in Brazil, you know, where people get married to one person but date and give flowers to someone else. And they really go all out with their declarations of love. So, humans, since women don't have that, like, how can you know exactly when she's fertile? I mean, if you see a woman on the street or you're talking to her, there's just no way to tell. I know someone in the comments is going to come up with some wild theories saying you can tell, and all that stuff. But I'm talking about everyday situations here. There's just no way. In the case of humans, there isn't that kind of strong scent or any physical change based on sexual dimorphism between the sexes or anything like that. That's why men are always on the hunt. They're always wanting, always thinking about it. Actually, that's one of the reasons, obviously, that we have a lot of testosterone. And the intense sexualized stimuli that are thrown into our environment every day also have an influence. But precisely because we don't know, it's kind of like every day is a day for men, right? Or almost every day is a gay. So the guy ends up going crazy, thinking about it all the time. This really ties in with what I said in the last video about the contract of physical beauty, that pretty much all men, whether they're chads, average, or unattractive, find even an average woman very attractive when she's wearing little clothing, and so on. So there's a missing link in evolutionary research about why human ovulation is so hidden. And, well, there is an explanation. There are articles that show this, right? It's a theory that brings together several hypotheses. So, just to remind you, even Crew used to say this. People often confuse theory with hypothesis. A theory is already something made up of several hypotheses that have been tested. A theory is not usually something uncertain. Obviously, a more robust theory can come along later, with more hypotheses added to it. Clearer, more numerous, or higher quality hypotheses that can override the old theory. But that's already something well founded. You won't hear me say something is 100% scientifically proven, because I think that kind of argument is pretty much a scam. So, yes, there is solid evidence for this. And that's what I'll leave in the link in the pinned comment from Alexander Grace, which the Teoria de Apariencia channel ended up hiding. So, the best of both worlds for women is met. She has the beta, who's a nice guy, the provider, who will raise her offspring, and have genetic affairs with attractive men. In other words, try to hook up with good-looking, tall, prominent, muscular guys, chads, and so on. So female infidelity, just like male infidelity and simping in general, people really live in a fantasy world. That is, the overwhelming majority of people, both man and women. If you go and ask someone like, why do people cheat? Oh, it's a lack of shame, it's about character, that kind of thing. They always give you those preachy Instagram story influencer type answers, you know? The kind of stuff those tactical agents push out there. So, like, people, they don't look at it from an evolutionary or biological perspective and so on. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that just because something is natural for you, that a man or even a woman has to accept it, okay? So, like, black pill, it's really about fatalism, about giving up on everything. Me, Epiphania, Karuja, we're already in more of an accelerationist mode, just letting the circus burn, because honestly, there's no turning back now. So black pill has this characteristic where you kind of accept that it's just natural and there's nothing you can do about it. Just like with the black pill about looks and aesthetics, even though in that case, there are still ways you can improve, like going to the gym, weight training, and having a low body fat percentage, like I've mentioned in several videos. But in this specific case about cheating, my friends, women are programmed that way. When I say programmed, I'm not saying that all women will cheat, but there is a biological component in them that if certain stimuli and rewards in the environment are favorable, it's gonna happen. And there's an explanation behind that. So that's what black pill is. Red pill, on the other hand, will keep trying in a way, at least in the more American sense, since over there it has a slightly different connotation than it does here. It keeps trying to put all the blame on external agents. Cultural Marxism, feminism, and so on. I'm not saying that these things don't have influence. It's just that it's not smart to analyze problems only from that perspective. You have to broaden your view. Things have way more tentacles than they seem. Ignoring this more fatalistic, more biological component means not seeing the problem as a whole. So this issue of concealed ovulation is exactly about that. As we get to the final stretch of the video, I want you to reflect and watch the video I'll leave pinned in the comments, which is really important for you to watch, because there you'll get the full explanation. Men's cheating, as I've already said, doesn't need to be studied, because it's obvious. Men naturally have testosterone and are thinking about this all the time. And one of the reasons is exactly that. Women can't really tell when they're fertile or not. And for women, that's how it is. This issue of ovulation is the main component. It's kind of like these more evolutionary folks in the black pill crowd ended up finding this missing link that was needed to complete the picture. Because just using society's moral breaks and civilizational destabilizing agents didn't explain the problem as a whole. So they found this way of looking at the issue of concealed ovulation, which is exactly that. No one can really tell when a woman is interested or not in the act of meeting. And when she is, she'll always try to look for the guy with the best genes. A lot of times she won't succeed because it's very rare, especially in a country like Brazil, where people are really out of whack when it comes to physical attractiveness. Unfortunately, the men here don't really help much with this Machiavellian plan of the women. But you end up having this more fatalistic view, that when you understand there's a kind of programming by nature for this, to look for the alpha's genes and for the beta to raise the child, because it's very hard for a woman to raise a child on her own. It's no wonder that many women need help from their mothers, single women need help from their grandmothers, and so on, because even though society is in this state of collapse, and it's actually been this way for much longer than conservatives think, you still have a mononuclear family there that ends up helping out. When it comes to raising children, that's a really solid foundation for building a civilization. But now that's become a legend, something romanticized, and it's an exception for just a few. Are there still well-structured families, solid families, happy marriages? Yes, but you're not going to see me on my channel recommending you jump with a parachute like theirs. There's a 95-97% chance you'll crash to the ground. So my channel isn't about exceptions. It's a channel about major social deformities. So, since things are chaotic, not just in Brazil, but all over the world, especially in the Western world, and even in the East, too, at least when it comes to countries like South Korea, Japan, and so on, it doesn't make much sense to keep trying to fight against this powerful biological instinct that women have to want the best genes for mating, and then have a nice beta provider to raise the kids. And even when, sometimes, the father really is the guy. In this case, the lifeguard really was the father. There was no story of false paternity or anything like that. But even after getting married, women still have this instinct to keep looking for the best genes. Obviously, not all women are going to cheat, and it's not because of that. You might say, but many women don't cheat, and it's possible to have a happy relationship. Well, not really, because you're still going to have some emotional hells that sometimes might even be worse than cheating itself. So the situation is actually much more precarious than it seems. So I'll leave the link pinned for you guys, okay? So stay alert, observe, watch, and study carefully. You're gonna feel a bit discouraged when you find this out. It's kind of a fatalistic thing, but it exists. This whole cheating programming is about seeking out the best genes. And then comes along some nice, naive provider who calls his wife the boss and takes care of her. But anyway, there's no point in getting mad at Tranks, Alexander Grace, Karuja, or the messengers, since the bitterness of it all is the message itself, right? Not us. The messengers, got it? A big hug to all of you, my friends.